My name is Eric Walter. This is my final project report on the presidential election and optimization study. Here's the situation. You're a mathematician hired by Donald Trump to help him get reelected in 2020. It's usually pretty obvious that a presidential candidate should target swing states, or states that have historically varied from election to election. But specifically, which state should he prioritize, and how much time and money should be spent in each state? I solved the problem based on the knapsack approach, with the electoral votes of each state being the value. The poll data leading up to the 2016 election, combined with the voter turnout, gave the cost, which was a swing vote, or a vote that could be won over from the other candidate. The idea was that only a limited number of voters can be won over across the country because the candidate simply does not have enough resources or time to win them all. He needs to know the cost of winning each state and whether it is worth it to campaign there. As I said earlier, the election data was based on polls which were from 270towin.com. The polls shown here were some of the most contested battleground states. The program, written in MATLAB, assumed that to win a state, the candidate needs to earn enough popular votes to have more than his Democrat counterpart. It's actually not necessary for a candidate to win a majority of votes in a state, which I'll show on the next slide. Looking at the polls for New Jersey and Wisconsin, Trump had 40% in both states. However, Clinton had a bigger margin in New Jersey, so the difficult part of the program was determining how many resources or votes it would take to win a state. Here's an example where the 2016 election results show that Trump won Wisconsin by less than a majority vote. As a reminder, this is the electoral map of the United States. Each state is winner-take-all except for Maine and Nebraska. Because I couldn't find poll data for each district of Maine or Nebraska, I chose to include them as winner-take-all states. Also, I couldn't find poll data on DC, and Trump lost the last election by about an 85% margin, so I decided not to include them. Finally, the last bit of data I needed was the popular vote turnout in each state for the 2016 election. Basically, I extrapolated the poll data based on the total voter turnout in each state. Initially, I wanted to use a margin of victory or defeat to define the weight of the knapsack problem. However, it's difficult to quantify a cost based on that percentage. Here's what the rest of the voter turnout data looks like. Like I said earlier, I used the knapsack approach to solve the problem. Basically, the inputs are the poll data, voter turnout, and electoral votes of each state. The value was the electoral votes, which is what we want to maximize. The weights were the needed swing votes to win a state, which was a function of the poll data and voter turnout population. The knapsack problem assumes that the design variables are between 0 and 1 and have integer constraints. For this problem, I had 51 variables, one for each state plus District of Columbia. Once which states were determined that gave the maximum electoral vote, the breakdown of resource allocation was made. The results are shown here by a breakdown of states that should be the priority in pie chart made in Excel. The states not shown either cost too much to win or the lead is so big that it's not necessary to campaign there. Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were easily the biggest states that needed the most time, which makes sense considering their populations and how close they were in the polls. The only true swing state not on the list was Minnesota. So these states, plus states that are assumed granted that Trump wins, combined to a total of 308 electoral votes. Donald Trump won the election in 2016 with 360 electoral votes. There were several assumptions that needed to be made that led to the limitations of the program. For instance, assuming a linear relationship between the amount of time spent in a state and the number of votes that would be won. I made a big assumption by presuming independent voters are up for grabs, which may not necessarily be true. Also, this program really doesn't account for what the Democratic candidate is doing in the campaign. The biggest advantage to using poll data is that whatever is going on during the campaign, whether it be speeches, debates, interviews, or whatever, it should be reflected in the polls. Thank you.